You might not realize it, but there's a war being fought right now. Not on some faraway battlefield, but right inside the phone you're probably holding in your hand. It's a silent, high-stakes battle over who gets to build the eyes of our digital world. And these are the combatants. We're talking about a handful of super specialized South Korean tech giants, and they are locked in a fierce fight for dominance. The outcome of this battle is going to define the future of how we and our machines see everything. So that's what we're digging into today. We're pulling back the curtain on the invisible war for your phone's eyes, taking a deep dive inside Korea's camera tech giants, all based on some fascinating analysis from HDIN research. Here's the game plan. First, we'll map out the battlefield in this invisible tech war. Then we'll look at a tale of two very different fates. We'll check out the race for smarter eyes, explore the massive global supply web, and finally, we'll get to the good part, picking the winners and losers. The Korean camera module industry is polarizing. Big time. The market is splitting into these clear winners who can charge a premium, a middle-of-the-pack group that's scrambling to reinvent themselves, and, well, a struggling group that's just bleeding cash. Let's meet the 9 key players.
So, here's the lay of the land for 2025. Up top, you've got the leaders, LG Innotek and Samsung Electromechanics. These are the heavyweights with the scale and the R&D budgets to just dominate. Then you've got the challengers, like MCNEX, who are fighting tooth and nail to grow their market share. Below them are the niche players, think Namuga, who are zeroing in on specialized tech like 3D sensing. And finally, you've got the troubled group, companies like Camsys and PowerLogix who are facing some serious headwinds. So how do you actually win this war? Well, it really all boils down to strategy. And right now, these companies are heading down 2 completely different paths. You either go all in with one giant client, or you diversify like your life depends on it.
On one hand, you have the A-client bet. That's LG Innotek. They supply a huge chunk of cameras to Apple, which gives them unbelievable scale and lets them charge premium prices. But on the other side of the coin is the S-client squeeze. Companies like Namuga and Camsys, they're tied to Samsung, where they face this relentless pressure to cut their prices by 3 to 5% every single quarter. It's an absolutely brutal environment, especially for lower-end phone models. And this chart, wow, this just shows you the mind-blowing results of that A-client bet. Just look at LG Innotek's bar. It's projected to pull in over $12 billion in revenue. That's more than 4 times its closest competitor. That, right there, is the power of being the key supplier to a client. It's a whole different league. So if you're stuck in that price-cutting nightmare, what do? Where's the escape hatch? Well, for a lot of these companies, the most promising answer leads right to the automotive industry. Our cars are getting smarter, and they need way more and way better eyes. And MCNEX is the textbook example of how to pull off this pivot. Just look at their revenue pie here. Yes, smartphones are still their biggest business, but almost a quarter of their revenue is now coming from automotive camera modules. They've built a second engine for growth, which helps protect them from those brutal smartphone price wars. Of course, a great strategy doesn't mean much if you don't have the right weapons. And in this tech war, winning is all about innovation. So let's break down the key technologies that are really separating the leaders from the laggards. Okay, first up is something called folded zoom, and it's super clever. The best way to think about it is like a tiny periscope packed inside your phone. Instead of stacking lenses straight out, which would make your phone crazy thick, it actually bends the light sideways. It's a brilliant trick that gives you powerful optical zoom without a giant camera bump, and it's pretty much a must-have for any high-end phone these days. Next is the time of flight, or TOF sensor. This one works kind of like a bad sonar, but it uses light. It shoots out invisible light and then measures exactly how long it takes for that light to bounce back. This lets it build a super precise 3D map of whatever it's looking at. This is the bedrock technology for things like advanced facial recognition and, you guessed it, the future of augmented reality. And this isn't just some niche tech. The market is absolutely exploding. This chart shows that demand for 3D cameras is on track to nearly double in just 6 years. So for a specialized player like Namuga, this is their golden ticket. This is how they can move beyond just phones and into new worlds like robotics and extended reality. And this all leads to a really critical point. It used to be that the biggest advantage in this industry was just having massive factories to assemble cameras, but that's not enough anymore. According to HDIN research, the real competitive advantage, the moat that protects you, has shifted. Now it's all about being able to research and develop your own core components, especially these tiny, incredibly complex motors called actuators that move the lenses around.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit, because none of these companies exist in a bubble. They are all just one part of a huge, complex, and honestly pretty fragile global supply web. To really get what's going on, you have to look at who they depend on.
So here's how that web looks. The most critical part, the image sensor itself, is basically a two-horse race between Sony and Samsung Electronics. For the really good high-end lenses, these Korean companies have to rely on specialists like Largan, based in Taiwan, province of China. Then, the actual assembly work, that happens in enormous factories mostly in Vietnam and mainland China. And the whole time, they're getting squeezed by intense competition from Chinese rivals like Sunny Optical, who are huge players, especially in the budget and mid-range market. All right, we've looked at the strategies, the tech, and the global stage. Now it's time for the moment of truth. Let's look at the bottom line, the cold, hard numbers that really separate the winners from the losers. Nothing tells you the story of demand quite like factory utilization. A busy factory is a healthy company. So you look at LG Innotek running at a really healthy 81.7% capacity. But as we go down this list, oh boy, the numbers get scary. Partron is under 30%. That's a high-risk situation. And then there's PowerLogix. Just let that number sink in for a second. 9.9%. That means for every 10 hours their factories could be running, they're just sitting there, dark, for 9 of them. It is a brutal, brutal sign of how badly demand has collapsed for some of these companies. An almost completely idle factory is just a catastrophic financial drain. And if an idle factory is a slow-motion disaster, this is a 5-alarm fire. This number here is CAMSES's operating cash flow for 2025. They were burning through nearly $21 million. But here's the crazy part. This happened in a year where their revenue actually grew by almost 30%. That is a massive red flag. It means you're selling stuff with razor-thin margins and struggling to get paid. It's a classic sign of a company in deep, deep trouble. So this is where we are. This is the state of the war. As our entire world gets more connected, as our cars and our gadgets demand to see more and see better, the stakes for these 9 companies couldn't be higher. The big question is, which of them has the right strategy and the right tech to build the eyes of our future, and which ones are going to be left behind in the dark? Just a quick note, all this analysis is based on data from HDNI research and is for informational purposes. It is not financial advice.